So here's the finished product of my custom stock mount intercooler. Pretty pleased with the way it came out. It took a lot of work. I went with a bar and plate core after doing some research. That's supposed to combat the heat soak better than the tube and fin. So if you know about FDs, you know that heat soak is our main problem with these intercoolers, given the location, no airflow going over them, stop and go traffic. So anything that can combat that, I'm going to try to take full advantage of. The downside is they're a lot heavier. So I mean, these are solid aluminum plates here, so they're going to be quite a bit heavier than the tube and fin variants. This thing's a pretty sizable core. It's essentially the largest thing I could fit in that location of the car and still run a fan and not touch anything. So it took some work trying to get this in. It's very comparable in size to the Australian variants. The biggest difference is going to be this is one single core. I just have this on a box so I don't scratch up my table here, but you can see this is one solid core instead of the U-type like what you have with the Night Sports and the Australian variants. As far as thickness goes, it's about the same dimensions, but this gets a little bit overall larger core size just due to the fact that you don't have two cores stacked on top of each other and you don't have any kind of gap here trying to butt up the two cores. So you have nothing but solid intercooler going throughout here. The height is slightly different compared to the Australian ones as well. So overall this thing's a little bit larger in volume than those variants. It's quite a bit larger than the Night Sports one. Full aluminum 5052 I went with. That leads me up to the other large difference between these and the U-type. Like I mentioned, you have air that goes in the back core, goes down in this tank, and comes up and out this pipe with the Australian variants and the Night Sports. With this one, the air travels in the hot side, coming down, and goes that way. So this is essentially split in half. I believe the technical name for this is the dual pass. So I can technically say this is my first DP.
Oh my!
Intercooler. Running a single core versus duals does reduce complexity. It created another challenge as to what to do with this top tank right here. I have seen some other dual passes to where you can essentially have a huge weld here because you're going to have to weld essentially two tanks. I really went back and forth between creating two separate tanks and have the same look as the Australian one, but I think this came out better with a single large tank like this on the top. Let me know what you think about that. I did come up with a bunch of other CAD designs where it was essentially two different tanks here, and I thought it might look alright, but I think this looks more factory. So say if somebody actually wanted to have one of these in California or something, you can get this powder coated with some kind of texture powder coat, and I think it would probably pass as stock, pass the visual inspection, and not be so noticeable. And on that point, I was not planning on selling these, but I've had so many people reach out to me asking if I'm going to be selling them. I'm still kind of on the fence. This has taken a lot of work, a lot of time. I don't really have that much free time, but I've had quite enough interest to possibly make them in small batches as long as people are starting to wait. But that is saying that this thing actually does work out. So theoretically, this whole thing on paper should perform excellent. I still have to finish the rest of the kit. I'm going to go through some pretty aggressive testing and film all that so you can see everything. Everything's going to be totally transparent. And that being said, that's specifically why I created this plate here. I got 2 ports for pressure, so I'm going to measure pressure in, pressure out, so I can report on the actual pressure drop on these. You hear a lot of claims on intercoolers, but you never actually see real data. So here I'm going to provide real data. I want to know if my design works. This is my personal design. this is a huge science project for me. Yes, I'm an engineering background, but it's one thing to design something on paper and test in CFD and everything else. It's another thing, real world testing in the car. So I got two pressure sensors and then two temperature sensors. So I got a intercooler gauge. It's essentially going to measure the temperature on the hot side and the cold side, so we can see just how efficient this core is and how well it's working. It is possible this thing could be total crap and not work at all, but I'm not guessing so. It's a bell core, which is I've used bell cores in the past for a lot of the race cars I've built. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think the largest issue is just going to be getting airflow, which brings me to the fan. So on Sasha's kit, I was pretty much 100% going to buy Sasha's kit until I saw the price on it, and then I saw a little bit of design. If you don't know, go back and watch my intercooler video. I kind of pointed out some things I didn't like about it. One of the things is the fan shroud. So I have enough gap, calculated the gap here. I have enough gap, so there's enough space in between the shroud and the intercooler to let air out of the come through the core. On Sasha's design, it looks like, this is my only observation through pictures. I don't have one personally in hand to measure, but from the pictures it looked like there's not enough space in between the shroud and the core to allow the rest of the volume to go through the whole core. And that would mean that the only area getting sufficient airflow is going to be the fan diameter on his kit. Everything else seems like it's going to be blocking. So to combat that even further, I added these flaps here. So while the car's driving down the road and you got airflow coming in through the front bumper and duct, these things are able to open and still allow airflow through the core. Got these on all four corners, and that way I don't have to worry about that. But in stop and go traffic, this thing can still run. It'll pull a vacuum on this backside. These things will come shut and you can still draw fresh air all the time. So I'm really trying to look at the overall picture, see what the downsides are of having the stock mount, and combat them the best I can. I address them logically and with actual data. So the 3D printer came in super handy. Was able to design and print this and make some adjustments where I need. A couple dollars in material or something like that before I actually went and got the finalized one made out of aluminum. Sencut Sun's great for that. Same thing with all the mounting brackets and stuff. I'm going through designing the mounting system for this thing. I still need to design the AST relocation kit, which is going to move it over next to the intake. And I'm currently in the process of designing the fresh air duct to fit the new larger core. 3D scanner, the Creality one I got with the package of the printer, came in super helpful with that. I was able to get the engine bay scanned and do what I need with that. And it's just taking some time. I've never actually worked with surfacing tools or anything before. I have a mechanical background, so I've only done a lot of parts and whatnot. But as far as the surfacing and design process of ducts and whatnot, I have not done that in the past. So I'm going to have another video on what I did with that and take you along my learning process and how I tackled that. But I essentially scanned the factory duct, I reverse engineered it, and I'm adapting essentially Mazda's design to fit the larger core. So this thing's going to be still a full bolt-on affair. You can pull all your stuff out, put this in, and there's not going to be any cutting involved. Really, the only thing you're going to have to change is you're going to have to shorten some cooling hoses to your AST, but everything else is just going to be a bolt-in, so it'll help us OEM Plus guys that want just a stock upgrade. Or if you don't want to go through the hassle of doing the V-mount, this thing is supposed to handle over 500 horsepower as a core. I'm never going to run that, but it's just there as a possibility. I don't doubt it, just given the size of it. Like I mentioned in the intercooler video, the Australian variants, we've seen dynos, and there's plenty of people running those at well over 500 horsepower with single turbo setups. There is a pretty large benefit to having this in the engine bay still with the shorter intercooler piping and reducing the overall volume of the system to help with lag on the turbos. So anyway, there it is. This is my finished design. So here she is sitting in the car. This is what everybody's been kind of waiting for. Getting close, but I still have quite a bit of work to do. Right now on the 3D printer, I got some brackets being printed up right now for that. I got this one on the left side done just for measurement. I'm making some adjustments. As you can see, it doesn't fit just right, so working on that. But now you can see the size difference of the stock intake shroud here, and this is what I'm doing today. I got this in here so I can scan it, and I already scanned this and I reverse engineered this to be right about this point, and then now once I scan the engine bay, I'm going to be seeing where I need to make some lofts to make it connect to the intercooler. And like I said before, this doesn't mount up to the stock location. I did that on purpose, put it in the middle just for more aesthetically pleasing looks, because I'm going to have one of these made as well, since it's going to be a whole different intake there. Another little thing here, barely fits. All measurements turned out right, but you can see I do have belt clearance all the way around, which is a good thing. I was worried about that with the fan, but I measured 100 times and all the measurements came out good. You can see how close we are to the cold side pipe there. Got a 45 here that I need to cut back a little bit more, and then that'll fit. But it's gonna be, I think, a pretty good little intercooler there. I do have to design and fab up a AST relocator, so this AST down here will fit right here. That's going to be next on the list after I get this scan and start working on the fresh air duct for the intercooler. But this is an update for all you guys that have been asking and PMing me. We are getting close. It's just I'm doing this in my very little spare time, which is pretty much non-existent, but I think it's coming out pretty good. Let me know what you think.
Me encanta.